Hello, and welcome to today's HubSpot Academy Masterclass. My name is Kevin Dunn, and I'm the new inbound professor for HubSpot Agency Partner Training. This masterclass is presented by HubSpot Academy, HubSpot's official learning resource and the worldwide leader in inbound marketing and sales education. HubSpot Academy offers free certification courses and free tools to not only grow your business, but to grow your career as well. Today we are joined by Paul Roetzer. Paul is founder and CEO of PR 2020, a Cleveland-based content marketing agency and HubSpot's first agency partner. He is the author of the Marketing Performance Blueprint and the Marketing Agency Blueprint, creator of the Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute and Marketing Score, a regular contributor to leading marketing industry blogs, and a frequent speaker on marketing talent, technology, strategy, and performance. A graduate of Ohio University's E.W. Scripps School of Journalism. Paul has consulted for hundreds of organizations, from startups to Fortune 500 companies, and has been recognized by Smart Business as an innovator in business rising star. So no shortage of
we could cut that in half, probably.
Plenty of accolades. But Paul, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So maybe to get started, the best place, this would be a question for both you and anybody joining us on Facebook as well. But I mean, what is artificial intelligence? So like, how would you best define it?
Yeah, it's one of the core things. So when we started really exploring AI, trying to understand what exactly it is, how you can apply it, was the starting point for us. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, if you go to Google right now and search what is artificial intelligence, you're going to find, take your first 10 experts, those 10 experts are all going to have different definitions of what AI actually is. So my favorite, in large part because of its simplicity, is from Demis Hassabis. So Demis is the founder of a company called DeepMind, which was bought by Google for about $600 million in 2014. And so today, he is still the CEO of Google DeepMind. Recently, they were in the news for their AlphaGo Zero, which we can talk a little bit more about later. But Demis calls it the science of making machines smart. So in its most basic sense, machines have no knowledge out of the box. They don't think like humans. They can't tell a chair from a table. Like, they have no knowledge. And you have to train these machines to learn, to think like humans, to do things in some cases at superhuman levels. So AI is this umbrella term that covers all the technologies and processes that make machines smart. The most common terms you would then hear under that umbrella would be machine learning and deep learning. But there's also things like natural language processing, natural language generation, image recognition, facial recognition. If anyone lucky enough to have the iPhone 10 right now, you unlock that with facial recognition. That is a form of artificial intelligence. The phone, the hardware, the software doesn't recognize the human face. It can't. It's trained to do that using a thing called neural nets. So these are all types of AI that are taking machines, taking hardware, taking software, and enabling them to be smart. So that's really what it is. It's the simplest way is think of AI as the umbrella term. Machine learning, deep learning, all these other terms fit under that. The basic takeaway for marketers is you don't have to have a deep knowledge of all of these tools. You just have to understand what it's capable of doing for you.
Sure. And actually that leads into another interesting question, but I guess just to clarify, how would you distinguish machine learning from deep learning?
Yeah, so machine learning is really the process of deep learning is a type of machine learning, basically.
Okay.
It's a more advanced version. So in machine learning, it's the machine developing on its own. So a simple way to think about this is if you, in a marketing use case model, if you have an ebook on your site to be downloaded, and someone comes there, you as the marketer set a set of rules. You write algorithms, basically, that are a set of rules that say what happens when someone downloads that ebook. So if they download the ebook, send these 3 emails. You as the marketer figured out which 3 emails to send. You figured out what to put in those emails. You picked the images. You picked the colors. You picked the subject line, when to send them. All of these are data-driven decisions, or they should be, that right now a human largely makes.
Sure, yeah.
In machine learning, and then the human monitors performance and tries to alter what happens.
Yeah.
Machine learning is the machine taking over a lot of those individualized tasks and learning on its own and actually altering the path forward based on what it's figuring out at levels a human can't comprehend. And so now, instead of like you saying send all emails at 2 p.m. on Thursday, the machine may vary at an individual level when those emails go out. It may recommend different headlines because this one performed better. So That's machine learning, is just the basic way that the machine uses kind of computer science to keep getting smarter.
Yeah.
Deep learning starts introducing what are called neural networks, which is basically trying to get the machine to think more like a human does. So like when you look at, a great example of this to understand how really unintelligent AI is at times, if you tell an AI that is a dog,
Yeah.
you have to show the AI 3 million dogs versus 3 million cats before it figures out what a dog actually is, and at a high degree of probability can get it right a lot of times. If you show a baby, 10-month-old baby, this is a dog barks, that baby's going to recognize a dog probably every time moving forward.
Yeah.
So what's happening is in the human brain, these neural networks, they're like layers of how you recognize things. That's how they're trying to now train machines how to think, is like how these layers function in our brain, thus the deep learning part.
Yeah.
So going much deeper, because first you see there's fur, then you see there's legs, and then there's a tail, then it barks. Like all of these things our brain just does.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of money for decades now has been poured into ways to try and understand how the human brain works. And they've made a lot of progress. And now they're trying to give that knowledge to machines. So Google DeepMind is one of the furthest along. IBM Watson is trying to replicate the human brain. Like there's lots of efforts. The U.S. government's been doing it since the 50s. Like
no, that's interesting.
New.
I think what was the recent update to the iPhone, right? I mean, you can go to your photos and search dog, and it'll recognize all the dog photos.
Yeah, and
right?
I just last week, the first time this happened to me, and some people may have had this happen. If you're in your photos in your phone.
Yeah.
It'll actually say, is this person? Like, who is this? And
it'll
have
recognize,
you, right. And what it's doing is it's having you tag somebody. So they do for my daughter. So my daughter's 5. So it said, who is this? And I was like, well, this is interesting because I know what's happening now behind the scenes.
Right,
So I said, well, that's Isla. And then it pops up another dozen photos, and it has check marks and all. It says, is this her? And there's photos of when she's 2 months old, when she's 5 years old.
Really?
And it's not. So what it's doing is it's using neural nets to recognize that person, much like Facebook when you upload a photo and it says, do you want to tag Kevin in the photo?
Auto tag, yeah.
Right, it's using that facial recognition software to actually figure out who that person is, and then every photo from then on, you have now trained, you've done deep learning basically.
Yeah, you've helped
now,
it,
right,
yeah, right.
You've trained photos to recognize, in this case, my daughter, and every future photo I take will have, it'll know that that's her.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to go back to a second. You mentioned this a little bit. Well, I guess obviously you've been putting out a lot of content and you've been speaking about like the inevitable impact AI and machine learning is going to have in marketing, right? And I think we talked about it for a second there, how all of these decisions when sending an email, right? Maybe the tool can figure it out and optimize and kind of handle it on its own. But if you could expand on that, I guess, like why should the marketer or a marketer care about AI, and how is it going to impact their role?
Yeah, I mean, this is something I've thought a lot about for, well, it's 2011 is honestly when it started for me, when Watson went on Jeopardy.
Yeah.
And to me, that was kind of a pivotal moment because I didn't understand AI at the time, but I started from a marketing perspective thinking, wow, if you could apply that same technology, because the way Watson works, so people are familiar, is like, it doesn't actually know the answer. What it does is it takes a massive amount of data, all kinds of information, and then it looks at probabilities of an answer being correct. And if the probability hits a high enough confidence level, it would answer the question.
Yeah.
So I looked at it and said, okay, so when people are trying to figure out how to spend their marketing budget, how to build strategies, we pull from this like limited knowledge and capabilities we have as humans. Take the best marketing strategists in the world, and they still have a limited knowledge. They have their specializations, things that got them where they are in their career. And so I thought, well, if you could apply that same Watson-type technology to marketing strategy, like what would happen? Like, wouldn't that be possible? And so then I read a book called Automate This by Christopher Steiner in 2012, and it talked about the disruption of Wall Street and how at the time 60% of all trades made were done 100% by machines with no human interaction.
Wow.
Talked about healthcare and logistics and transportation and all these places where AI was already disrupting. And there was a simple equation in the book of when to know when an industry would be disrupted. And it was the potential to disrupt plus the reward for disruption. So the way I looked at it in 2012 was the potential to disrupt in marketing is unequivocal. Like it is, everything is data driven or should be. It's all. So there's no doubt it would make sense in sales and marketing to apply.
Sure.
the reward for disrupting marketing wasn't as great as healthcare and retail and e-commerce and these other areas. And there's only so many people that can do AI. There was a recent study that said there's about 10,000 AI researchers in the world.
Wow, okay.
And Facebook, Google, Apple, Amazon, NVIDIA, they buy all of them. In some cases paying millions of dollars for AI developers. So in marketing, I've looked at it now for 6-7 years and said, take every use case you just explained, like email send time optimization or recommending content on a site based on different factors. All these things that we currently do, that we term a lot as marketing automation. The great irony of automation is it's mainly manual.
Right.
So you have software that enables you to automate things at scale, but the human, the marketer, still programs it all. It still
won't automate until the human builds it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no real intelligence other than the human intelligence, which is fine, but it's limited. Like it's a finite ability to get better. So I've always looked at it and said, well, intelligent algorithms have an infinite ability to get better. All it really requires is better data, more data, cleaner data, and increases in computational power. So the ability to computate at a higher level. Well, in the last 3 to 4 years, you've seen massive improvements in computational power and the ability to actually do things in the cloud that 10 years ago you couldn't even fathom doing.
Yeah.
So in marketing, if you look at anything you do that's really time intensive, and especially if it is data driven, a machine over time will do that better than a human as soon as someone sees the reward for solving that to be great enough to put resources to do it.
Sure.
So like HubSpot has started doing this with bots, with the acquisition of Chemv, which enables to start doing a little bit more on the sales side.
Yeah.
All of those are recommending content, I think, is something that's moving forward.
Yep.
So all these different things that marketers currently do, you're going to have AI in very narrow use cases be built to solve specific things.
That's great. And actually, let's pause there, I think, because we can build off some of these questions. And I think you spoke to this. We're talking a little bit about how it's going to impact the marketer.
Yeah.
But is there anything that you would note in regards to like digital advertising methods? This question
absolutely.
comes from Karen.
Yeah, programmatic ad buying is something that's been going on for a while, and that was a first entry. But actually, a company to look at would be Albert. I think it's just albert.com. They used to be called Adgorithms. They just changed the name of the company. It's one of the more advanced AI systems on the market. And what they do is, it's pretty mind-boggling. Like if you're new to the space and haven't really seen an application like this yet, what they do is the human does the creative. So you come up with, it's all for digital ads online. The headlines, the images, the calls to action, like you figure that out, and then you upload your variances of it. So like here's 3 headlines, here's 5 images, here's the body copy.
Yep.
And then you say, I want to spend $5,000 a day. Albert then, in a fully autonomous way with no human interaction, starts running infinite variables of it.
Sure, yeah.
And it adapts which creative works best to which channel. So it may start running ads in Facebook and Instagram and Google and LinkedIn and wherever, and then on its own, running 24/7, it never has to stop, it starts figuring out the best creative and the best channel, and it automatically reallocates the budgets to the proper channels.
Yeah, it's wild.
So in terms of digital advertising, it'll completely disrupt the space.
Yeah.
Now the challenge with Albert is they have a minimum ad spend, I think, of $20K a month.
Got it.
So it's not going to solve anything for small, mid-sized businesses, and I haven't seen any other true competing tool. Now it may be out there, and if someone's aware of it, I'd love to hear about it, because we're trying to find those kinds of solutions for people. But Albert is a great example in digital advertising space. The other thing would be like Pathmatics is a cool one. It's a company out of Santa Monica, and what they do is competitive intelligence. So they use different types of machine learning and different types of AI to monitor what people are doing, and what they'll do is they'll pull all the ads into your dashboard, and they'll show you the creative your competitors are running. They'll tell you how much they spent on it. They use different algorithms to try and figure out spend.
Yeah. Wow.
They'll tell you how many impressions they had, and then they'll alert you anytime that the creative changes. And so you can actually, again, one of the interesting things we'll talk about, kind of a theme throughout this, is you won't often even know you're using AI. Like much like in your life with photos, or if you're using smart replies with Google and app.
Sure, yeah.
Like you're using Netflix, you're using AI all the time and you have no clue.
Right.
That's what marketing's going to be like.
Yeah.
So you may look at Pathmatics and be like, well, that's an interesting competitive intelligence, so that's kind of cool. Get a subscription, all the while not even knowing you're using AI now to monitor your competitors.
Yeah, right. So I guess there's two things there that I think are incredibly interesting. So one, AI exists in our daily lives, whether we are already starting to recognize it or not. Yeah. We've already given some examples, but I'd be interested to see in the comments if anybody else has some other examples, right? We talked about the iPhone 10. We talked about Netflix, but I'm sure there's plenty of other instances out there. Right?
Facebook, it's all over the place. It's how they figure out what to show you in your news feed, how they figure out what images to
tag.
show you. Yep.
Yeah.
Amazon is a phenomenal example of everything they do to like customize your experience on Amazon. And,
yeah, sure.
And
what
I think
to
that's,
buy next.
Yeah, that's one of the trends you're going to see is like how you experience AI in your daily life and how convenient it makes everything. Google Maps, another example. Waze, like all of these tools are everything in them is AI. And so your expectation as a consumer for that level of convenience starts to trickle into how you buy in your business life as well. So if you're a B2B company and you're selling to another human, they go throughout their day with the convenience of all these things that are done using AI, even though they don't know it. And then they get to your site and there's no recommended content and you're getting emails at the same time everybody else sends the emails. And like your experience, there's a disconnect.
Right.
And I think that's the opportunity in marketing is to get up to the level of where consumer expectations are for the experiences they have every, dozens of times throughout their day.
Something like timing, relevancy, personalization, like all of that is just hyper-focused.
Personalization is huge. I mean, it's really the holy grail of what we're trying to do with AI is that one-to-one experience.
Yeah. So what it sounds like too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it, like AI, incorporated into marketing. So I mean, I'm thinking of like these time-intensive tasks that I have to do, right? Sounds like, well, if I'm a marketer, well then yes, I know I have to test, right? I'm going to A/B test or ABC test. But it sounds like with the power of AI, potentially it's not only going to make those testing elements quicker, but it's also going to do so in a way more advanced rate. So it's like not only am I going to test more efficiently, but it's going to actually present results way more advanced than I'd be able to do myself.
Yeah, if one of the first questions I ask is like, am I going to lose my job? If your job is running A/B tests, yes, you're going to lose your job. Like I can't say that unequivocally for most career paths.
Yeah.
But if you're running A/B tests of landing pages, like you're not going to be doing that.
So AI will be able to do ABC tests in the blink of an eye.
So much better than a human can.
Yeah.
And like a really practical example I like to say for that one is, let's say you have a video on your site and you're trying to figure out what color to make the play button. Infinite number of choices of what color to make it.
Of course.
Who are you or I to figure out whether red or orange is going to react better to people?
Sure.
At the end of the day, that color button should be different for every individual that comes to it based on what they're most likely to click on.
What resonates with them as a unique individual.
So personalization to that level. I need a ton of data to figure that out, and it's not always going to be perfect, but you can use lookalike matching and
yeah, of course.
To start weaning it down. But
so it sounds like we've been talking a lot too about how we're going to improve the tasks or responsibilities of a marketer. So is AI bringing anything new to the table, or like any new services or any new responsibilities that a marketer would have to take on in order to implement AI, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So probably a good example of this would be, so I started in 2011 thinking about AI a lot, but I didn't really go all into it until 2015. So at that point, I was at South by Southwest, and there was a panel with the executive editor of the Associated Press and the CEO of a company called Automated Insights.
Sure. Yeah.
And so they told the story of how the Associated Press was doing 300 earnings reports a quarter with humans writing them, and using Automated Insights natural language generation technology, which is a type of AI. They were now doing 3,000 a quarter, 100% written by machines.
Yeah.
And so I sat there, and I was familiar with Automated Insights, but I didn't really understand exactly what it did at that point. And I thought, holy cow, like, can we automate the creation of blog posts? Like, how exactly does this NLG technology work?
That's the approach to content that we write. Yeah, sure.
So we write a ton of content. It's basically what we do for clients. So I came back, and we launched this Project Copy Scale is what we called it. And it was basically, how can we increase the volume and quality of content, potentially using AI? And so what I learned over about a year or so process of beta testing different tools and exploring it is that there's this whole new career path potential that opened up. So what happens is the NLG you don't give it a data set and it just automatically tells a story, which is kind of what I assumed. So I took a sample data set, dumped it into the NLG engine, and I saw a blank page. And I was like, where's my content? I thought it just generated narratives.
Yeah.
And we were using the same technology to do Google Analytics narratives at the time, and it just worked like magic. Like I flipped it on and hit a button, and there was a 7-page narrative of my Google Analytics. So I, again, assumed, just put data in and narrative comes out.
Yeah.
Not how it works at all. What has happened, though, is you now have the blending of data science and journalism. So any organization can take their data and think about any stories they currently tell with data. It might be financial reports, monthly marketing reports, proprietary data out of a software system, whatever it is.
Yeah. If
there is data that someone is writing a story about, you can train an NLG engine to write that story at scale. So a human could write it once as efficiently as the machine, but the machine can then instantaneously write it 1,000 more times with any variable in the data set. So what I realized is the answer was no, we can't use machines to write blog posts by just putting data in and out come the story.
Sure.
But what we could do was take any data set, and the best way to visualize it is it has to be structured data in columns and rows. So again, if like a really practical example to picture is if you were in an e-commerce store and you have 50 types of TVs you want to sell, instead of a human having to write descriptions for each of those 50 televisions, you would take a spreadsheet and you would have screen size, resolution, how many inputs, all these variables. So each column is a variable, and then each row is the brand of television. You would write one template, maybe it's 200 words long, of it's a 50-inch screen TV with XYZ, price point is this, and then the NLG would actually be able to take the next 49 rows and take that same thing. And in your narrative, your template, you would put synonyms, so you would do branching logic, like if it's this size, then
you can
put
reference
this
it this way.
in.
Sure.
So you're as the human training it, but it is this blend of like envisioning a story driven by data and then being able to tell the story. It's really two career paths that have sort of converged. And then you can write 50 descriptions in less than a second.
Right.
So we've been looking at ways to apply that to different organizations that have a ton of data. And so in the case of like creating new things, back to your original question, long way to get back to the question,
it's good.
is what it did was instead of just writing stories and just analyzing data, it created the ability to tell stories at scale using a form of AI technology.
Sure.
Now, most NLG on the market today doesn't get smarter on its own, so there's no, back to some different variations, there's no machine learning involved. Like, it doesn't then look at behavior on the site and how people engage with it.
How descriptions impact purchase.
It doesn't
decisions.
alter the description and make it better.
Sure.
But that's where NLG can go, is like it can then blend machine learning over it and start to actually improve its own content. And that's back to the Google example. So if you go into your Google app and you go to respond to something, like say someone sends you a meeting, like you want to meet this day, it'll recommend 3 answers to you. And you can just pick one and click it. That's using AI. It's using natural language processing to understand the words and what was asked.
What's the desired action of this, and then kind of leading you to the answer.
Exactly. And then the NLG is producing words that you can use to respond.
String the sentence together, sure.
So Google has a team of 35 engineers led by a guy named Ray Kurzweil, who's one of like the forefathers of like modern day AI thinking. And so he's leading a team working on that piece of the product.
Wow.
And so if you think about it, it's like, why would he be at Google writing 3-word responses? The answer is that's not what he's doing.
Yeah.
They're learning. So they're trying to figure out the human language and how to generate it.
Yeah.
And so I think in the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see a lot of, right now, humans are uniquely capable of writing narrative. Machines are uniquely capable of telling data-driven stories at scale. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, those lines are going to start blurring.
Really?
Machines will start being able to create narrative. It's a really, really hard problem, but if Google has a couple dozen engineers working on it, like they can probably make. So start to imagine, like instead of just smart replies, what if you're in Google Doc and you're starting to type a paragraph in Google Doc, and it starts recommending how to complete that,
like what the next
paragraph
phrase should be, or wow. Let's pause there for a
Yep.
second. I think Stevie brings up a really great question. This is actually maybe a good transition. But is there a trade publication you would recommend to stay up on new artificial intelligence solutions, technologies? I mean, any place that you would recommend to learn more even, you know?
Yeah, trade pub, not necessarily. There's a ton of great online sites for it, though. So, like Futurism is a blog I read. The Singularity is another one, which actually Ray Kurzweil is involved with that.
Okay.
The Future of Life Institute. O'Reilly has a great AI newsletter. So there's a lot of sources, and I think, so Mike Kaput, who's the director of our AI Institute, I think he's probably involved in the chat, so he can throw up some of the other resources we look at.
Oh, perfect.
So people can kind of check out in the thread there.
That's great.
But yeah, there's probably about a dozen or so that I follow regularly to stay informed. Because again, when I started this, like, I'm not an AI engineer. I don't have a PhD in computer science. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not a developer. So mine was just an obsession to gain knowledge and understanding. And so I did the things you would do. I went and found the books to read, and I've probably read, I don't know, 10 or 12 books on AI. And from the basic stuff, starting with like automate this, to the stuff that'll blow your mind, like Pentagon's Brain and Life 3.0 and our final invention. And like, so you start to grasp that. And then I built a private Twitter list of dozens of AI experts. And so when something happens in AI and I think it's important, I'll go check that feed and say, like, do they think it's important? Are they talking about it also? And then you start to kind of see through that. And then with the AI Institute, we've done a ton of interviews. And that gives us the chance to learn through those experts.
Some
as
of the
well.
influencers and experts in the area. Yeah, that's great. One question that I have that we haven't really spoken about, but where do like chatbots live amongst all of this, right? So I mean, obviously HubSpot has GrowthBot, but I'd be interested to see like what your thoughts on them and kind of where they play in this landscape.
Yeah, chatbots are huge. Obviously, Facebook made a big play there, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago. So it's an obvious entry point for a lot of organizations, and for a lot of marketers, it'll be one of those tools that this looks really neat. You integrate it into your site, don't even necessarily know or care that it's AI, but all of a sudden things are being done more efficiently. The reality is most chatbots today are still largely human coded and driven. Like the branching logic is largely
still a manual task to set up and implement. Yeah,
it won't be that way for long, but in most cases, the bots aren't that intelligent yet, I would say.
Sure.
Yeah. But they can drive massive efficiencies using, again, they're using types of AI. Like they're using natural language generation to like pump out text that you would read or voice that you would hear.
Yeah.
They're using natural language processing to understand your words and your questions. So it's not that it's not AI, it's just not machine learning.
We're still in the early stages,
we're
so to speak.
We're at that surface level AI, I would say.
Sure. Now, I know you brought up a really terrific example of, a retailer who's trying to sell TVs and how we can get all their descriptions up and running. So, I mean, do you have any like real life examples or any companies, like regardless of size, small or big, that seem to be using like AI from a marketing perspective, like really well? Are there any examples out there?
I don't know the people at Cosabella. I haven't talked with them.
Sure.
But in like 4 or 5 of the AI companies we've featured, they come up as a case study. Like, so whoever is at Cosabella, whoever's the CMO, like, I would look at what they're doing.
Sure, yeah.
So they had a quote in a publication in like October of 2016. They had moved to Albert as their media buying tool and said like, we'll never go back to humans buying media. Like it would never make sense.
Sure.
So they seem to be doing some really interesting stuff. We did a case study on Delta Faucet that was using a company called OneSpot to do recommendations of content, but also then intelligently targeting people off-site. So that's an Austin-based company. That OneSpot is an Austin-based company that's doing it. Coca-Cola has, there was a quote from one of their heads of global marketing that said that they see the future of storytelling being done by AI, which is a pretty provocative thing to say, because most people believe today that qualitative narratives can't be told by machines.
Uniquely human, yeah.
Yeah, and I generally agree with that. My opinion changes as time moves on a little bit. But they've said in the article, like, we're experimenting with ways to use AI to generate social media, to pick songs, to do all kinds of things in their advertising.
Sure.
And if you're a company that has an ad budget of, I have no billion, I don't know what Coca-Cola spends.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Throwing $100 million at something experimental, why not?
Sure, yeah.
And again, a lot of the challenge or the opportunities in AI is more someone just committing the time and talent and money to do it.
Sure.
It's not that it can't be done. There are some, like going back to my original thing of how do we build marketing strategy with AI.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure how that happens. It can be done, and I've mapped it out how it could happen. But I think we're still at least 5 to 10 years away from someone actually being able to do that. Again, if you put enough time and money, maybe you could.
Sure.
But most of these more narrow use cases, it really is just a matter of someone having the right people to work on the problem. Most of them aren't that hard for people who can build using machine learning.
Yeah.
It's just they have other things they can build that they can make more money building. So why build that?
Sure, yeah. Actually, let's pause there here. This is actually a good question. So from Carla, what are some of the limits you see in AI, like currently?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Or even potentially,
Yeah,
like,
it's
forthcoming.
and so I referred to, on the AI Institute site, the Marketing AI Institute site, we've done 32 spotlights. So we've interviewed these 32 AI-powered VC-funded companies. Combined, they have $586 million in funding. 7 of them don't publicly share their funding, so it's actually probably much greater than that.
Sure, yeah.
We're tracking about 511 of them that combined have $2.9 billion in funding. So there's just like all this money pouring into the space. And so one of the things I wanted to know was this exact question. So when we do these spotlights, we ask the same 8 questions of every person. It's usually the founder or like a lead engineer or something like that. And one of them is, what are the limitations of AI? The biggest limitation is, in my opinion, is probably that general intelligence doesn't exist. And by that, what I mean, and you and I talked a little bit about this beforehand, is what you see in the movies, like these intelligent robots that can talk and have
sentient,
sentient beings,
right,
that have consciousness and they can have all these senses. Like it doesn't exist. There's no AI platform. There's no like one company you can go buy that just has all these AI tools baked in. So the machines have to be trained or train themselves to do very specific things.
Sure.
And so the largest limitation is you can only build it to do a narrow task. So pick like email subject line writing or send time optimization or recommending content on the site. Like you have to build it. And oftentimes you have to have a lot of data and it has to be really clean, good data. So the limitations are you can only build narrow. Data is oftentimes critical, so it usually limits it to large organizations that have a lot of data.
Sure, yeah, right.
And then you just need the time and resources to build it. And then you don't just build it and forget about it. It usually requires a massive amount of human training and ongoing support.
Yeah, right.
So like you'll have a lot of people like will hear AI and think, wow, I could just magically fix this thing, not realizing that there may end up being quite a lot of effort going into training it.
That's a great point.
Yeah, so that's a really good question.
Yeah, I guess, so if I'm a marketer right now, right, I mean, obviously we've touched a little bit about like education and where like certain like things to digest from content, like learn, but I mean, how do I get started? Maybe I don't have a budget like Coca-Cola, right?
Yeah.
So like, how would you recommend staying ahead of AI?
From a marketer perspective, I think first you just have to commit to learning, to not being overwhelmed by the whole idea of it, to realizing you don't have to go as deep as I've gone to like really learn and like wake up in the middle of the night thinking about this stuff.
Yeah.
You just have to know what's possible, the potential of AI, and educate yourself on that basic information. When you're ready to actually try it, pick a single use case. So again, if you're a HubSpot customer, there's a number of tools like 7th Sense, I think, does email send time optimization. They're integrated in HubSpot. Predictive scoring is built into HubSpot. The new content strategy tool has some machine learning mixed in that helps you actually build it. Like pick those so you can start to experience it and realize what it does and how it works and start getting more comfortable with it. And then take a splice of your marketing department, say a month or a year of data, and look at which things you spend the most time and money doing that are really time intensive and that maybe are really inefficient or they have a bunch of data involved, and say, could I intelligently automate this? Is there a tool to intelligently automate this task? So for us, it was Google Analytics reports. We would spend 7-8 hours a month on each client producing a narrative of what happened on their site the month before. We integrated natural language generation, had the templates created, and we can instantaneously write 20 client reports.
Right.
So
it really is just identify, okay, what are the most time-intensive tasks or tasks that rely heavily on like the review and like analysis of data, and then look to bring in some automation around that.
Yeah, like right now I take, so I run an agency in addition to the AI thing, and I have a CEO report I do every month that has probably 40 different metrics in it that come from 3 different sources. And so I would normally go through the rows and I would like write the narrative each month or each quarter. Well, I'm just going to train the machine to write it. So I'm going to write it with different variations. Here's a monthly, here's a quarterly, here's an annual report.
Yep.
And then I don't ever have to write them again. I just go in and
That's, yeah.
and edit them and add
Right.
a couple of insights.
So just to confirm, right? So kind of as we've talked about the process, it's one, making sure you have clean data and organized data, but then it also requires that template. Like this is how this is usually constructed. The machine can then go ahead and build that out at scale.
Right. For storytelling, yes.
For storytelling, yeah. I mean, have you gotten any feedback, or I guess like I'm interested in learning more about like the overall impact on marketing performance. Like has there been like a higher sentiment in the quality of reports and some of the storytelling like pieces that you've put out? So if you could speak to
Yeah,
that,
I mean,
would be
we've told
helpful.
those stories. We've done a few case studies on the Marketing AI Institute site and told the stories through the tech companies that are doing it. And they all claim yes.
Performance is, it's more effective, right?
Yeah, it's hard to argue the efficiency side. Like if you get it right, certainly that can do it. Again, email send time optimization is such a simple example, so I'll stick with that one again.
Yeah, that's helpful.
But if you, like, let's say you send a weekly email newsletter to 10,000 people, and right now you send it on Thursdays at 2 p.m.
Yep.
Those 10,000 people may be across like 5 different time zones. A portion of them may actually do most of their email reading after 10 p.m. on Saturday nights because kids went to bed and they finally catch up on stuff. A human is never going to learn that. You would never dedicate enough resources to continually segment that database and keep personalizing down to that individual level.
Right.
And then their preferences change, and it's like, how are you going to know?
Sure, yeah.
So that it's just the perfect example of like, there's no debating that if you have a machine that is always getting smarter and always improving it, it's going to have a positive effect. Like
The
you're
fact that
going
it
to
can
see a
even
lift.
consider all of those variables, just,
Right.
It's something that a human honestly can't do at scale.
Right.
Yeah. Looks like we have a couple questions. Let's get in here quick. When do you think AI would be a part of marketing strategies for SMEs with not as many resources as the top? That's a great question from Andrea.
All right, so there's a couple levels to this. So the first is it's going to be really hard because they usually lack the data necessary for the machine to get smarter. However, if someone like HubSpot were to anonymize 37,000 customers' data sets and be able to recommend strategy or content topics based on a much larger data set.
Be able to reference the
Right.
data set. Yeah.
Or like a good example would be social media send, like the strategies around when you publish and how you publish.
Sure.
Rather than using it based on a study that happened at a fixed period in time and then you share that same recommendation with everybody that downloads the report or attends the webinar.
Yeah.
If instead each portal is always learning and optimizing send time and what to put in that social, which hashtag to use, what colors to use, what images to use, and always learning every time you post, it figures new things out.
Sure.
Those are the kinds of tools that SMEs could start seeing much sooner. Figuring out what to do with a $100,000 budget, no time in the near future is that going to happen.
So you basically have to lean on organizations, maybe it's within like a tool like HubSpot, right?
Yeah.
So analysis of data at a much larger scale and then being shared on the smaller scale for the individual companies or users in the tool.
And I think it's a good, going back to your question about how do you get started, the other thing I always recommend to people is talk to your existing marketing technology stack. Like go to your automation, your CRM tool. If you're with HubSpot, great. Find out what else you could be doing. What are the more intelligent tools? Like if you're not using predictive scoring yet, is that a fit for you? Do you have enough data to look at to start using predictive scoring? As new beta tools start coming out, to be able to start experimenting with those, it's probably going to be the best play because again, there aren't that many people in the world capable of building these solutions. Most of them get acquired for insane valuations.
Sure.
Like I was taking a machine learning class through Coursera last year, University of Washington, I think. The professor's company got bought by Apple in the midst of that program. It was like a 6-week thing for $200 million. I think they had 6 employees. So it's like they're so uniquely capable of building things that one of these massive companies is going to come and pay a whole bunch of money to get. So even if
wildly desirable, right? Yeah.
So even if you start go find like 10, 15 tools that are all AI powered, if they're actually any good, there's a really good chance the next 2 years they're going to get absorbed into one of the big platforms.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's
Gotcha.
going to become a platform.
That means it's available, right? Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, is it a safe bet, or is it like just to confirm, right? So if I'm a SME or a smaller scale or like a smaller team looking to leverage AI, well, one, I should review my current technology stack and see what AI levers are already available to take advantage of those.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then, again, there are a lot of tools. And so the 32 spotlights we've done, part of that is to try and like help people figure it out. Like if this is something you're trying to solve, here's a company that does it. Here's their, Crunchbase funding. Here's their G2 crowd rating. Like, do the work yourself.
Sure.
We're not recommending this tool. It's just we're trying to put the spotlight on ones that seem legit and have like a user base.
Again, it's like to keep pulse on where AI is going, where machine learning is going.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you can't go into like G2 crowd and say, show me AI powered marketing tools. Like that necessarily I don't think they have that category. Maybe they should.
Yeah, right. Not sure.
But yeah, I mean, you still go in looking for email marketing or automation or CRM, and you don't necessarily know which ones are intelligently automated and which ones aren't.
Sure.
Because a lot of these companies are struggling with how to explain AI and how to position what they're doing as an organization, because it's like the sexy thing to slap on your name right now.
Yeah, right.
But it doesn't necessarily mean marketers know what it means or really value it, because they may not know. So there's a ton of education going on. Kind of like the early days of inbound marketing, where it's like, well, what is inbound marketing? Why should I care? There's a bit of that, and plus AI is just so hot right now, it's like you almost start tuning it out a little bit.
Right.
And that's why I take the approach of like, it's just going to be so present in your life as a marketer, you're probably not going to know.
And it's just going to feel like the new normal versus like this whole new thing that you're going to have to learn how to handle.
Yeah, like if marketing software isn't intelligently automated in the next 3 to 5 years, they won't be in business.
Sure,
like it's every marketing software company is going to have AI baked into it.
So as a marketer, you're not looking for the AI tool or the AI company. It's like, okay, let me find the company that differentiates itself or the tool that differentiates itself by incorporating AI. Like what's going to be the leading email tool? Well, it's the one that incorporates AI for performance.
You still have business goals and business challenges, and that's what you're trying to solve.
Go for it, yeah.
You just may be able to find tools that do it more intelligently and more efficiently that drive performance at a higher rate.
Guys, we still have plenty of time left. If there's any other questions, I mean, they've been terrific questions thus far, so please keep them coming. Just one question, probably more on the lighthearted side, but I mean, what aspect of AI, machine learning, deep learning, what is most exciting to you?
I guess part of my discovery process has been, what is the future of the agency? So I look at what we do on a daily basis, and again, we're primarily B2B. As you said, we were HubSpot's first partner, so we're big in automation and CRM and lead gen and nurturing and qualification. And I don't know how many of those things humans are going to be doing in 3 to 5 years. So the thing that's exciting to me is there is this like whole new world that is going to be artificially intelligent. And we're, for the most part, it's going to enhance our knowledge and capabilities, not necessarily replace them.
Yeah, right.
But I also think a lot of what we do manually won't be done manually in the near future. And so the chance to try and figure that out and kind of redefine the path of where we go and where our clients go, that's cool. Like it's not trying to figure out how to just publish through the noise and get people to come to the site and subscribe and like the same stuff we've all been doing for 10 years. And I think there's a better way to do it. And I don't know exactly what it is yet, but it's a lot of fun to try and figure it out.
So if all these tasks are soon to be automated, where's the marketer's time going to go?
Probably places we're not aware of yet.
Sure.
So funny side story, I did a big macro level AI talk a few months back in New York, and the first question I got was, are we going to lose our jobs? And I said, listen,
it's a frightening prospect,
yeah,
right?
It's actually a legitimate question.
Yes.
There's differing opinions. There's a study by Bank of America that says there will be a $9 trillion impact on the knowledge work industry within the next decade. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Salesforce says that we'll create 800,000 net new jobs in the CRM industry alone. Like nobody actually has a clue.
Sure. Right.
But this guy says, am I going to lose my job? And I'm like, listen, it's a tough question. But what I can tell you is there's a study in 2014, University of Oxford did the computerization of industries, two professors. And they looked at 702 professions and the likelihood, the probability that they would be computerized completely. And I said, all I can tell you is you don't want to be a telemarketer. And he goes, his face drops, and he's like, I'm a telemarketer. And I thought he was messing with me.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of looked around the room, and I was like, no, really? And he goes, no, I'm
but
serious.
yeah.
Like, are you saying I'm going to be out of a job? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Because he was like later in his career. And so I was like, oh my God, I was not expecting this. Like, and so then I went into this explanation, like take any great technological advance. And there are people a lot smarter than me who believe that the impact of AI will dwarf the creation of the internet itself. Like what's going to happen to the economy, to forget just marketing, think about society and the economy. And once everything is intelligently automated, like what do we do?
Yeah.
And so anytime there's been a disruptive force and a technological advance, careers and jobs are created that you can't even fathom because the tech doesn't exist yet.
Right.
So rewind 10 years ago, the iPhone doesn't exist. Like when I started my agency in 2005, Facebook wasn't available yet outside of college campuses. Twitter didn't exist yet. Blogs were the thing the geeks did, like no one else was blogging.
Yeah.
The iPhone wasn't around. Like, so if I just look at it, actually, ironically, today's the 12-year anniversary of my agency.
Happy anniversary. Yeah, congratulations.
And so I think back 12 years ago and what we were doing.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't have any of these career paths. Like the things we do for clients today, they didn't exist 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I look at it and think like it's just going to open doors. Like yes, it'll replace things that honestly humans probably hate doing anyway. Like unless
way to look at it.
Yeah, like most people don't want to sit there and crunch Google Analytics data and try to figure out what it's saying. Most people don't want to take spreadsheets and write 50 product descriptions.
Right.
So it's going to intelligently automate that. It's going to probably automate a bunch of things we can't think about yet. But it's also probably going to create all kinds of really fascinating opportunities that don't exist. And it's probably going to give you all kinds of knowledge you never had. Like you're going to be able to perform at a high level. So the way I look at it for marketers right now is it can be your competitive advantage within your career, for your brand, but also you as an individual. The more you grasp it and what it's capable of doing, and the more you start finding ways to do things more efficiently and driving performance, yes, you may replace some of the tasks you probably hate doing anyway.
Yeah.
But you're going to be a better marketer.
Right.
And so it's going to give you superpowers.
Yeah.
To a
It's
degree.
like great positioning for the individual,
Yeah.
right? To be able to say, yeah, I know where this is going and what the power or what it can help me do.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And you can put your head in the sand and pretend it's not going to disrupt your career and just go about your business.
Yeah.
I take the path of like embrace it because a lot of people are going to be afraid of it.
Yeah.
And the more you're willing to just kind of open arms, like, all right, explain it to me. Let me learn more. Let me go look at some tools. You're going to set yourself apart.
Yeah.
And most companies are going to, if you think they're looking for people who know marketing automation today, wait 3 to 5 years when they're trying to find people who can intelligently automate stuff.
Right, exactly. It's interesting, right? So, I mean, you mentioned like some of the things the agency does now you could have never even fathomed because, some technologies didn't exist yet, right? Mobile app development, social advertising.
Palm Trios in 2005, I think.
Who knows what the service offerings are going to be, but two, like what roles and responsibilities look like in a marketing department.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Let's transition back. Is there a way, or over to our comment section here, is there a way to remove the need for tons of data to make use of AI? If my goal is to personalize, why do I need tons?
Because the machine needs to learn. So the data sets are what it uses to better personalize.
Sure.
So it can try and shortcut it with like lookalike analysis and things like, so if Kevin shows up on the site, Kevin came from these channels, we know this demographic data about Kevin, he probably will like things like this person we have a year of data on.
Yeah.
Again, no human is really wanting to go there and say, figure all this out and draw these correlations. The machine can do it instantaneously, and it can do it at scale to like 100,000 visitors.
Right.
So that's why data is needed. You want the personalized data, and so you need interactions over time. And the more of those you have, the more data you can capture. Now there are ways, again, to take anonymized data sets and try and apply it to those smaller businesses that may not have a ton of data, but it's tricky.
Sounds kind of like Watson at the very beginning, right, when we were talking at the top of the hour. But, I mean, is the volume there to help just improve our confidence level on a decision? Is that more or less what it is?
Yeah, it's the probabilities of it being correct. So
Sure.
like I mentioned earlier, so this is a really cool example. Like if you want to, again, have your mind blown, do a Google search for AlphaGo Zero. About 3 weeks ago, Google announced in the Nature journal that they had created a system called AlphaGo Zero. So about a year and a half, 2 years ago, you may have heard about AlphaGo. And the DeepMind team at Google had built an AI system that beat the world Go champion. Lee Sedol, I think was his name.
Yeah. Wow.
Go is like a 3,000-year-old game, insanely complex. I think at any given time there's about 13 million possible moves. So far more complex than chess.
Sure, yeah.
Most people didn't think AI would be able to win at a game of Go for at least another decade. They thought the tech wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
So Google did this, and they did it about 2 years ago, and it was kind of a watershed moment within the AI world.
Sure.
Fast forward to 3 weeks ago, they built something called AlphaGo Zero. And what AlphaGo Zero did was all they did was gave it the instructions of the game of Go. And in 72 hours, it learned by playing millions and millions of games against itself how to play Go at a level that looked alien to Go champions. It then beat its predecessor, AlphaGo, 100 games to 0.
Jeez.
In 72 hours, it learned this.
Yeah.
And then they shut it off. So they don't even know how smart it could have gotten.
Yeah.
So what Google is actually trying to do, so it wasn't the first, I don't want to overstate this, but one of the first publicly known instances where something learned from scratch on its own by playing itself to win in a game that is as complex as it is. And then they literally did interviews, and the Go champions are watching the games saying that these are alien moves. Like it's making moves 9 steps in advance. Like a Go champion would be like, why in the world would it do that?
Right.
9 turns later, it's like, oh my God.
It knew 9 turns.
It was predicting 9 turns out what it should do now.
Right.
And they're just like, this is absurd.
So it's like the growth is machines have the ability to learn, right? And then we can kind of, we give them some base knowledge to then learn from. But then the advanced layer on top of that, which is AlphaGo Zero, is, okay, have them start from scratch, learn themselves, and that's what we're seeing now.
Right. Yeah, and again, there's technology, like you get into the surface level stuff, you read what a bunch of marketing ad companies are doing, and you're like, wow, that's really advanced. The stuff you'll see publicly is nowhere near what is actually happening behind the scenes that may not find its way to the marketing industry for a decade.
Right. I mean, timing-wise, it has to trickle all the way down.
This isn't new stuff. Like, it's literally 1987, a guy named Thomas Pefferty hacked NASDAQ, and by hack meaning took the feed coming from NASDAQ and taught a machine how to make the trades, then got in trouble because they said that the trades need to be entered in, like with the machine. So he built a robot that did computer vision to read the screen and then punch it in with like a machine punching it in.
Yeah.
It's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Like today, 70% of all trades are made by machines. And I look at it and say that is far more complex, far more variables than how to spend $100,000 or $1 million across 100 channels. Like, yes, it's really hard for humans, but there are AI tools built to do things far more complex in other industries.
Sure.
And the promise of things like an AlphaGo Zero that probably won't be commercialized for quite a while.
For a long time, yeah.
But at some point, it's all going to kind of... So my opinion is like, just embrace it. Like, it is crazy, and if you read the wrong books, like you can't unlearn the stuff you'll then know, and it's your mind can really go down some dystopian paths. But in the near term, focus on the opportunities for marketers.
Well, in the theme of embracing it, here's a question from Carolyn. So, I mean, I know we've name dropped a few people, but let's just recap. Like, who are the top people to follow in AI?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So,
or what does that private Twitter list look like?
Yeah, some of the people that come to mind, like Mark Cuban is a fascinating one. People don't know, I mean, he owns the Dallas Mavericks. He made a lot of money selling Broadcast.com to Yahoo in the early 2000s, Shark Tank. I think he only invests in AI companies now. Like, he is a huge advocate of AI, a huge believer that it's going to change everything. So he does a lot of interesting stuff, invests in a lot of interesting companies. Demis Hassabis is, like, from my perspective, I mean, one of the true, brilliant minds of today of what's going. Elon Musk, there's this fascinating dispute, I guess, or differing of opinions between like a Mark Zuckerberg, who's massively invested in AI, like Facebook is huge into AI, and Elon Musk, who believes we may be going down a really scary path with AI.
Yeah.
And so there was actually a thing where Mark made a comment about he thought Elon may be overstating the concerns around AI.
Really?
And Elon Musk, I don't remember, it was a tweet, I think it was a tweet or maybe an interview. He said, I've spoken with Mark about AI, I don't know that he knows what he's talking about.
Really? Like, really?
Yeah, so...
Controversy.
So Elon Musk started an organization called OpenAI. I think Stephen Hawking, maybe Bill Gates, some other guys are invested in that. And they're trying to... The challenge moving forward, like the big picture is like, you got to program ethics into it and morals,
Yeah,
and like
sure.
it can go down a really
Guardrails,
crazy path.
maybe. Yeah, right.
So if you want to like the crazy stuff, like the really big macro level AI, then you're looking at like Elon Musk and Zuckerberg and Stephen Hawking and Bill Gates and the Future of Life Institute and O'Reilly and like some of the ones I mentioned earlier.
Sure, yeah.
If you're looking at marketing, it's kind of hard to find. There aren't a ton of people in the marketing space. I mean, HubSpot's doing some stuff now with AI. They're starting to talk about it more. Some of the bigger platforms are starting to talk about it more. I know Dreamforce was this week. Salesforce has bought like 9 companies for a couple $1 billion.
Sure, yeah.
So Benioff's big on AI, believes it's the future of everything. So yeah, it's more at this point like it's the bigger picture AI experts and professors that are talking about the most interesting things. And then you have to connect the dots.
You had the opportunity to plug your own Twitter there, and you held back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and Paul. Guys, I think we're right up against the time, so I think we'll call it here. But Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you again soon.